I remember when I was playing with these ideas, my brother already had a master's degree, my sister was a pharmacist, and I was washing cars. I mean, sure, I was going to school, reading some books, I had memorized some sacred scriptures, but for the most part, because of the presence of my brother and my sister, I really found myself to be not very accomplished, not very successful, a disappointment to my parents. So there were so many judgments that I had imposed upon myself, and rightly so, because I had no idea what I was doing, where I was going. My future looked so insecure. I was too incompetent to get a job. I couldn't really say the stuff that lived inside me. And some days, were very, very difficult. I really disliked, but perhaps I should say I hated Hussein for having done this to me. And I remember one time David Long had come to the car wash as I was cleaning the bay. And it had gotten so bad that, I said, I have no idea why my parents gave birth to me. It's so pointless. And David, said to me what David usually would say, which is nothing. He just laughed. He said, "Oh, Amir, you're so funny." And that was the end of it. I tried to be in relationships, but they just wouldn't work. I had no idea what could satisfy me, what could bring joy to my life. Everything seemed so lifeless and so dead and so pointless. And I had actually had many images in my head of myself being homeless, not having any parents, not having any family, not having any friends, ending up nowhere. And you look around you, there are people your age and they're accomplished, they're going to school, they have jobs, they have friends, they have companions. And they seem to be, as far as I could tell way back then, they seemed to be happy and excited and inspired, doing whatever it was that they were doing. And I would always ask myself, what is wrong with me? Why can't I be normal? I had gotten my degrees and I tried to look for jobs and I went to some interviews. The problem with doing interviews, these ideas kind of push you to go into yourself and you can't come out. It's so difficult for you to escape the kind of castle that you have built inside yourself. And in this castle, there is no sun. It's always dark and no one really enters. And if they do enter, you never come out to greet them. And if you do, it's very casual. There's going to be no future. Nothing has a chance of survival in this castle. And of course, I would go to these interviews and they were supposed to last for 45 minutes to an hour. And they would ask me, tell us about yourself. And I had come from a tradition where you don't talk about yourself. It's impolite, it's disrespectful. And so you would say, well, I have these degrees and I've been teaching, and I would just make up some stories. And the interview that was, again, supposed to last for 45 minutes, it would be done in 15 minutes. And I'm not really quite sure what the committee felt about me or was thinking about me, but I do know that I would leave the room extremely sad and disappointed and angry because once again, I had failed. And the reason was that I had lived inside this dark castle for such a long time. I had lost the ability to interact with anyone. I had lost the ability to answer any questions in a proficient, clear way. Everything was vague. Everything was confusing. And if, you have been in academia, as many of the committee members were, and you've had experience in the classroom, you can easily tell when someone is faking it. Someone doesn't really know what they're talking about. Someone really is not very qualified. They may have degrees, but they're just not qualified to be in the classroom or to talk even about any of these ideas. And so, I couldn't go back to the world that I lived in, which was a world that was filled with a lot of friends, a lot of excitements. We were doing music, I was playing tennis, I would go hiking once in a while, but all of a sudden all these things just went away. And then the world that Hussein introduced me to, the world of ideas, religion, philosophy, the world that I enjoyed very much, and in it was a good amount of feelings and reflections. And despite the sadness of the feelings and despite the sadness of the reflections, I enjoyed the pain that they caused because I gained so much insight. I just didn't know how to express them, how to share them with others. because that takes a different stage to be. But, I wanted to build a life for myself. I wanted to do something that would do justice to all of my hard work past 10 years of working with Hussein. But nothing. Everything was a dead end. And I think out of desperation, my brother got me a job at Caltrans. I just couldn't survive it. There was really nothing promising anywhere as far as I could tell. And then there came a point where, I don't know how it happened, but I became very comfortable just thinking myself as, I can't say as a loser, as someone who was just completely not accomplished, but I was at rest. I had come to a place where I had made peace with the fact that this is who I am, this is what I am. And if I don't get a job teaching somewhere, I'll be more than happy working at the car wash. Because of the car wash, I had time to read, sometimes for 2-3 hours. I had time to write, sometimes for 2-3 hours. And once in a while, I would find interesting customers to talk to. And I think the idea of just working at the car wash for the rest of my life was mostly imagination and fantasy. They weren't really tested. So I can, tell you for sure if my life had gone into a different direction, I'd be very happy. All I know is that now, once in a while, when I do go to the car wash and play with the machines that are broken, I become extremely frustrated after half hour, 45 minutes, because I'm a bit older now, my body aches a bit more. And I just lack the patience to be at the car wash for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours. And then something strange happened, which was I stopped caring for getting a job. I stopped caring for being in a relationship. I had just given up. And it was a healthy way of giving up. I wasn't envious of my brother. I wasn't envious of my sister. I think once in a while I would feel the pangs of, a friend coming to the car wash after many, many years of not seeing them. And all of a sudden they tell me they're married or have children or they have a high-paying job. So of course you're going to have some negative feelings, but they would pass. And then I remember one summer, all these colleges began to call me. And I think in one summer I had about maybe 10 interviews, and all these colleges called for a second interview. And when I said, I can't drive that far, they said, how about if you just teach part-time for us? And I said, okay. And little by little, and I can't say really I had any hands in any of this. Little by little, I think my life just fell into the right place. But living in two worlds is very, very, very impossible. And it's impossible because there is something inside you that's exploding. There is something inside that's erupting. Your emotions are wild and they are intense. And the frustration inside you is really just immense, all the things and all the ways that you feel. And you want to place your physical body in an environment where, that the things that you feel and the things that you think and the things that you dream and fantasize can kind of come out so you could see them. These are, after all, your children. These are your most faithful companions that have been with you for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And the thought of having these emotions inside you, having these thoughts inside you, and then getting a job at a flower shop where you have customers with whom you have nothing in common. And it's really impossible to live in both worlds in a sane and healthy way, because there is conflict. The world, the physical world, the world where business takes place, the world where people are envious and it's a rat race, it's very difficult for that world to house and to be a good container for all the things you feel and think and want. So, you don't belong to the physical world, and then the stuff inside you is kind of stagnant. They're not going anywhere. They're turning to poison. They begin to attack you. They begin to punish yourself in all sorts of ways, and life really becomes a living hell. The only way that I think one can live in two worlds is, as far as my own experiences and insights and understanding allow me to kind of see, is that what has worked for me, and I think what works for most of the people who are introduced to these ideas and who are infected by these ideas and who are contaminated by these ideas, is that they can't get a master's in philosophy, religious studies. They can't sit home, read books, and think reflective and profound thoughts, and then in the morning go work at a coffee shop, or go in the morning and work at Home Depot, or have a companion with whom they have nothing in common. It's very, very, very difficult. The only way that I think you can live in both worlds is that you have your internal world, which is profoundly intense. It is really in many ways beautiful in a very sad way. And then you have the physical world that has a few colleges, has a few universities in it. And what you do is you apply, and you apply, and you apply, and you get interviews, and you get rejected, and you get interviews, and you get rejected, and you get punished by the physical world until a door opens, whether part-time or full-time, and you walk into the classroom, and something about you feels at home. You may not be very animated in the classroom, you may not even be very good in the classroom, but you have these moments where ideas ooze out of you. And the classroom becomes your Sabbath, it becomes your resting place. Now you can live in two worlds. And what happens is, if you have, sincerity and honesty, and, you happen to be a student yourself of these ideas, there are going to be people out there, students out there sitting in your classes who can feel this, see this, gravitate towards the things you're talking about. And they will come to you, they will knock on your door, your office door, and they say, can I come in and have a chat with you? I was puzzled by the thing you said. And before you know it, again, remember the college lives in a physical world, but all of a sudden you have this office where it becomes a center of traffic for students, and they all want to see you and talk to you. Now you can live in both worlds. And there are going to be times where living in this other world that has allowed you to express yourself so eloquently that it becomes so exhausted that you say, I just want to go home. I don't want to see anyone. I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to think about any of these ideas. I just want to sit and watch a good movie, or just sit and be left alone. The idea that, the foxes have the earth and the birds have the trees, but the child of humanity has no place to rest his head. It's very true for novices. It's not true for someone like Jesus Christ. It's not true for Malcolm X. It's not true for Socrates. This statement is only true for people who are beginning and have been on this journey for a couple of years. We're trying to really figure things out. They're trying to understand the confusion and the tornado that takes place within. They're trying to understand how these ideas are impacting them, and why is it that when they walk around, town with these ideas inside them, they are repulsed by what they see. They are repulsed by the people they see, the people they talk to, the people they listen to. They kind of feel homeless. They have no resting place. And, this may be just a fantasy on my part. I hope it's not, because there are really no guarantees to anything. And by that I mean that if you can be patient enough with all the, again, tragedies that live inside you, and all the awful things that you see about yourself and other people, and how they make you so miserable and sorrowful, little by little you're going to get a phone call or an email from this college, a phone call or an email from that college, and before you know it, every semester you're teaching 4 or 5 classes. That gives you a great livelihood. It also is a physical environment that all the things that you feel and think about can be expressed. And as time goes on, your expressions will kind of be more refined. They'll evolve into something really quite attractive and beautiful. To be able to live in both worlds is a contradiction, in the sense that, you can't love 2 masters. You can't love your emotional self. You can't love a self that understands things so well, and then walk into this garbage called the social world and be okay with it. It's not possible. But what you can do, hopefully, as time goes on, as your understanding becomes fuller and richer and more comprehensive, hopefully if there are gods above, they will look down upon you, they will show some kindness. And when that happens, you will begin to use physical life, parts of physical life, to turn it into a cult, an environment where you can express your ideas the way you see fit. And it's an environment that receives you really, really well. You have to fight, of course, to get this kind of physical environment to yourself. But, it happens. It took me a long time to kind of accept the fact that when I go to gatherings, I'm just going to grab my chair and sit by myself somewhere, despite 100 people being in my sister's house. I've accepted that fact that if there's a conversation that I don't like, I'm just going to sit there and not say a word for like 4, 5, 6 hours. I'm okay with that. I've accepted the fact that should people make any judgments upon me and should they be negative, I am absolutely okay with those judgments. All I know is that it took me almost 20 years to find a physical life that can house the sort of ideas and emotions that lived inside me. It was a good amount of struggle to get to a point where I could find something that allowed me to speak of the things that lived inside me. And that's the only way you can live in both worlds.